this year.
All right, we are on.
Welcome everyone. Today is Monday, May 2nd, 2022. We're here for the regular Board of Trustees meeting in Orange Township. I'll call this meeting to order. Ms. Kraft, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Grumbles.
Here.
Ms. Knapp. Here. Mrs. Faust. Here.
All right, thank you. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you for attending, everyone who's here today, and special welcome to Carolina Flynn, who's our new communications point for the township. So we're excited to have her on board and valuable part of the team, critical role for the team. So thank you for joining us today and welcome. We have any public comment today? None? All right. Welcome, Mr. Gary Walters, Reinhardt Insurance.
Thank you for letting me come in. I'm sorry. I know I sent over the proposal. I think it was too large of a file and it bounced back. So my apologies. We sent that on Friday. I do have copies. Is it okay for me to approach and pass these out? Or? Okay. So there should be a spreadsheet that shows you the premium difference from the expiring policy term and the premium that we're seeing for the renewal. It was a little tougher renewal this year. Part of it has been not necessarily because of Orange Township, but what we're seeing industry-wide. Right now, the excess layers of liability, which would be your higher limits of liability, you're seeing capacity shrink with a lot of the markets. So you're having some carriers that are basically saying we're no longer offering those upper tiered layers, and they're setting a cap on what they're going to provide from an umbrella standpoint. So the carrier that we've been doing business with through McGowan Underwriters, who is the administrator of the program, was using American Alternative Insurance Company, which is owned by Munich. They still are using them. Munich has cut their layers maximum capacity to $5 million. So we've had in the past a $9 million umbrella that was going over top of our underlying limits of liability, which we have had conversation. I just found this out on Friday, so I did not get a lot of lead time on this. Although we haven't seen this in the marketplace, it has not really impacted governmental entities up until now. Seeing it with trucking risks and other types of businesses where there has been pressure on that higher layer of capacity. I have had conversations with another market that I believe we can get the additional $4 million x of the $5 million umbrella that we have. He's given me kind of a roundabout ballpark idea from a premium standpoint for that additional $4 million. It would be at least $10,000, possibly more, depending on underwriting information. So that means we have to submit to them the applications that we've completed in the past, a copy of the municipal app that we filled out already for our renewal through Zurich. And then also they want loss information. I have to provide all that information to them. Again, just finding out from Munich, from our program administrator, that they're capped on that $5 million. I unfortunately don't have any firm number on that, what that additional 4x of 5, or if they're going to be able to do it based on underwriting information. So what I have for you today is a proposal for the underlying coverages, which would be the program has moved it from Argonaut Trident to Zurich. Zurich is an A-rated company by AM Best, around a long time. So program administrators will sometimes look at different markets, what they've been seeing from Argonaut Trident. The renewal book is not good. And so the program administrator made the decision to move the entire book to Zurich. So that's where we are from a renewal standpoint. So if we're just looking at premiums, you can see price-wise, we're up 10% on that, which is not out of the norm in our industry right now. We are seeing some increased rate pressure across the board industry-wide. So where you're seeing the bulk of your rate increase is coming out of the employment practices liability. In fact, there's some lines, if you look at the comparison line by line, where we had a decrease in premium. For instance, on the general liability and on the auto and the property, it's primarily being driven by the public officials and employment practices liability. Is also the loss leader for your entity, where we're seeing claim activity, so that's why you're seeing a little bit higher rate. It is also happens to be the loss leader industry-wide for government lands. We see an increase in claims associated with public officials, employment practices liability, and law. Areas that we're seeing rate. So in this proposal, you can see, of course, we're $4 million less on the umbrella. We are about a 4% overall increase. If we would add in, if the information that the gentleman provided to me that I spoke with on Friday about the excess $4 million is accurate, and it comes in at $10,000, we would be looking at a net overall of 10%. So I'm hopeful that we can do that. I do also have an option in there for cyber liability. This is something that we've discussed over the past and not been taken, but I think with today's environment, really would encourage you to strongly consider cyber liability. It's not necessarily the notification expenses and the first party expenses that are the issue. We're all, some of us have more public information, more identifiable information in our systems than others. Since our agency has a ton of identifiable information, we have to carry a large cyber liability cost. But it's not necessarily that. It's, or even a third party potential lawsuit of a third party. It's cyber crime that's going on. You saw extortion that happened last summer. It's called Pipeline. We are seeing claim activity in that area. We are also seeing claim activity in social engineering. So social engineering has probably happened to every one of us in the room, or at least an attempt, where you get an email. So social engineering is when you get an email from someone you think is a trusted source. That's not really them. So an example of a social engineering claim would be, we're paying our vendors electronically. And that vendor that you're doing, that you have typically paid electronically, sends you an email saying, we changed our payment route and we need to send you payments. Do not verify, not them, that's social engineering. You've got of those. So cyber policies are not providing $1 million limits in the social engineering, such the happening so much frequency. So it is sub-limited. Most of the carriers are offering anywhere from 100,000 to 250,000. Social engineering, they are giving you the $1 million in the extortion, giving you $1 million in business interruption loss associated with cyber event, giving you first party and third party claims. So first party expenses would cover your notification, cover credit monitoring services, forensic analysis, things like that. CI fines, and of course the third party would be a liability claim, suit, fraud, pollution. So we really are strongly encouraging the cyber. The cyber market has, standalone cyber market has seen a substantial increase in premiums. Rates have gone anywhere from 10% as high as 60%. Most of the cyber markets that are providing quotes, providing policies for governmental entities are wanting MFAs in place. So they want to back their application in order to do that. So if anybody is accessing your network remotely, it has to be, otherwise this quote is not subject to. And that's kind of what's going on. There are multiple types of FA platforms that are out there. In fact, our agency uses a platform called Duo, Push, where somebody's trying to access the system remotely, get a push to your cell phone, person in my agency. So that's what's going on the cyber side. On the package side, with with Zurich, we should have a proposal here. This kind of it's pretty concise. Talks about what the premium indication is. Talks about what the AM Best rating is for Zurich. They are an admitted carrier in the state of Ohio, which means you're protected by the Ohio Guarantee Fund for an insolvency with any type of insurance. We're going to be way ahead of that. So if we're seeing issues with that carrier, we'll be but you do have a blanket building and contents limit, a little over 18 plus 19 property values. This is a repair replacement cost form. Our deductibles are at $5,000. They are giving you some additional coverages. I'm not going to read through those, but I think you can read and understand, but I'll hit some of the highlights for you. Ordinance or law is $1 million in coverage for demolition. They also are including increased costs up to $1 million. So some buildings that you currently have may be grandfathered code. So build code that's been instituted, we have a physical loss to that property and we have to build it to the new code. They would pay that increased cost on top of what we showed for the blank codes that are increasing the rebuild cost. We pick that. We also take care of the undamaged portion. They're giving you some coverage down at the bottom, sewer backup, 100,000. So any of your properties that you own, backup the sewer and drains, damage. This is not a flood policy. Flood and earthquake are perils that occur. You can offer that, but that's not. water that's seeping into the door. That is what they consider peril. But I've seen that from time to time where the building is located. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a flood zone to have loss. Interest in looking at flood cover. The equipment breakdown that we include on the next page, that is a peril that is typically excluded under property forms. We're bringing that back. Could have an off-premises power failure, could be a car accident, a transformer, a surge of power that fries computers, electrical systems, HVAC, large component to it. So that part could damage your property. It has to be an accidental loss. Equipment breakdown also covers boiler explosion, things like that, but it's not necessarily covering maintenance or wear. Go to the next page, you can see our inland marine schedule. Unscheduled equipment, we have contractors' equipment of $1,017,783, and then we have unscheduled equipment of $7. Max per item on the unscheduled items is $2,500. Deductibles $500. And then there's $100,000. Any type of equipment that needs to rent it, there's $50,000. Crime coverages. We have $50,000 for honesty. That includes faithful performance. Of course, the fiscal officer is bonded. There has been some legislation that if the township would choose to do so by resolution, can eliminate bonds, put the crime coverage under a blanket dishonesty policy. My opinion of that is do that with caution. House bill, there were two different House bills. I can't remember the first House bill, but House Bill 444 basically was the House bill that allowed public officials to make that change in the middle of the term. Original House bill, the auditor of state was, you cancel your bond, you were dishonesty policy, you fill your term, it is vacated. So they've taken that language out of the House bill. Now make that change. Area of caution I would give you is bonds paid for just about anything. Have a fine for recovery, very, very few. Point dishonesty policy because of insurance that have exclusionary language in the form. So you could find yourself in a position where it would have been covered by the bond. So because of that reason, I'm still encouraging the townships to be hard about that. There, I think the reason why that bill came out was because of a horrific claim. When you're dealing with bonds, it's an obligee out the door situation. You are obligating yourself to pay the bond company. Bond is ever called. The bond the entity hold, and the individual holds that bond. They back bond. There have been some claims out there that treasurer and $800,000 fine for basically performing her duties. Somebody under her, but the way it worked out was her bond was called. So who's got $800,000 in their bank account? So the initial bill that came out was actually called Save Our Treasurers. Again, it's just seen some different iterations in the inflation, but that's the horrific. We've seen some situations where townships, for instance, thought they were paying for the fiscal officer's internet service, and it turned out they were paying people for cable bill, monthly cable bill, for the internet service for a period of 15 years. So each trustee that signed off at their bond call, each trustee in your service at their milestone. That's the reason why some entities are strong, are looking at it, because they just don't want to have that out of pocket. I think that bonds provide some type of duty of care. Because of that duty of care, that's why I think bonds are good. That's the way it's been up until this point. Ohio Revised Code has required certain positions to be bonded. Therefore, that's why I recommend. Doesn't mean that you can't pass that resolution. It's something you want to do, you have to fight to do costs. You have a blanket or a constant policy in here in the program right now over and above what you're currently.
Question for you.
Yeah.
In reading through several of the coverages and terms, so if we have a situation where we need to recover electronic records, or we need to recover things that were either intentionally or inadvertently destroyed, and we have a request pop up and we realize, we've had that happen a few times. Is that covered under these types of things? Would it be covered under the?
You're talking about from a standpoint of patient
Correct.
provided?
Correct.
Unless there's patients associated with it.
No.
So
Okay.
if there's a monetary cost associated with it, possibly.
Well, with recovering the records, it can be quite expensive when we have to send things out to
You're
get.
talking about, will the bonds cover that?
Will the insurance policy cover it?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I mean, if there would be there is certain coverage for, in most property form, bond coverages for title papers, so if there were documents, costs associated with documents.
No, it's not. Okay, understood. Thank you.
So along with the employee dishonesty and station I gave you about bonds, I just want to make sure you understood that that's available. We do have some coverage for theft of money, cash on hand, burglary of safe, robbery or money away from premises, frauds, fraud coverage, forgery and alteration. General liability limits, all have not changed. We are including coverage for employee benefits liabilities, so make sure the administrator. We're also covering employers' liability stopgap. To you, we have to provide that. This legislation, they cover for we are including sexual molestation in our. So, in the general liability, there is coverage for fire department errors and omissions, services type of errors and omissions. To fire occurs, attach the modification, get to the site. Those are examples. We also provide some watercraft. So, public officials, $20 each occurrence. Your deductibles, $25,000. Liabilities, $1 million. Also providing non-monetary. Even though those are not considered coverage trigger for the scopes associated. housing. It's a crisis management. That is a claim-made policy, so by default, the carrier form. Leave that carrier or not try to no longer be responsible for that loss was occurred during the contract. We are providing the prior acts. Auto coverages, those have not changed. $1 million combined single limit. Uninsured, underinsured motorists, that coverage right now. We have no coverage in the wrong with that choice, and provide limits up to $1 million for that. Keep in mind that employees' injuries are always covered first by workers'. So if you have an accident where your employee is injured by an uninsured motorist, workers' comp. If you want to provide additional coverage for pain and suffering, we can coverage in that area. Cost associated. Our deductibles vary. You're looking at a little higher deductibles on the vehicles, but most of it's $1,000. Rental car reimbursement. Good hire car is in here as well as autos or township business. Insurance is always going to be primary. Secondary access. Outside of that, that's pretty much packages and of course the excess layers, layers above, which are like mind that the $5 million umbrella that we have currently renewal is a siloed limit, so it's separate siloed limits over each line of liability. It's not an aggregate where you're sharing. That makes it nice. Likelihood of receiving the claim that would go up beyond that probably slim. See that. Reason why the capacity issue is happening in why some carriers, what used to happen is if there was a large claim, they would never ever pierce all those upper layers. Because of social inflation, juries, seeing nuclear verdicts. Got a $10 million limit available, juries are sympathetic to that, and $5 million, so that's the reason why you're seeing carriers that are in those excess layers pushing that capacity down. It is impacting the bottom line for those carriers. That's not. Any questions?
I just have a question for the board. If there's an interest in the cyber liability, I think that's something we should really think about. The multi-factor authentication is pretty much an industry standard in any entity, especially as much as we get, since I've been a board member going 2.5 years or whatever, we get emails consistently. Delaware County does a pretty good job about sending out repeated reminders on phishing and engineering attempts, not just to get us to release finances, but to just get general information as well that can be used against us. And we've talked previously about internalizing our IT work at some point and looking at the scope and cost of that, which is substantial, just to give us even more control over our records and our system, where we're doing backups on computer activity. In general, we don't have to keep going through all this mess. So when we have an issue come up, records recovery or records requests, but the multi-factor specifically, I think is something we should 100% look into, and making sure that if we do remote work's just part of it now. It's not an option. There's going to be days where all of us are working remotely or dialing into internet. Most of the board members are remotely tying in. We don't have township provided computers. And so this is just another blanket of security at a reasonable cost. If something were to happen, that we would have coverage. Plus, it pushes us to best practice anyway. And I think that that's a good thing. So I don't know if the board has any thoughts on that.
Does the county currently controls all of that? Is that right?
They control, they're our IT provider. So,
And
I mean,
There's no dual authentication at this time with the county IT department, so we would have to coordinate with them. But I guess my follow-up question is, if we were to move forward with the cyber liability, can we figure out the dual authentication afterwards, or should we have that in place before?
We want to have in place before here because with the cyber liability quotes and standalone markets, indicate that we did. I said subject to. We would go ahead and issue that policy.
right. So once we get it in place,
Yes.
then we can come and,
Issue
okay.
this policy anytime once.
Because we have some work to do, obviously, there, but I just wanted to raise that as an interest in a public session from my vantage point.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the same policy effect as the rest of your package. All of out.
Or we need a dual
We're a month away, or 2 months away, or 3 months away. Always.
What did you say the coverage is on that?
On the cyber,
Yeah.
so the cyber liability is $1 million. So there should be. Sorry. Trying to talk about that. Good approach.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So in other words, and we've actually had this happen in the past where a associate files requested for some reason by a hiring agency or by a screening committee or what have you as part of a lawsuit, and the file goes out and there's something that's not redacted accidentally, right? And now a third party has someone's personal information, PII. I just think this is a no-brainer for us. It really protects us. It's a pretty cut and dry lawsuit.
Does that cover that situation?
Yes. So there's, we've seen claims, law enforcement in particular, where we've had, do claim, there was about 3,000 records. Lost, this was 2 years ago, lost. Because of the logic.
And you're talking about something as simple as an address getting leaked out. And that's typically what it is for safety services, law enforcement, first responders. And we're talking about bringing in, bolstering up sheriff's coverage and having in the very near future, township kind of designated, patrols, et cetera. And we could very much expose ourselves to a situation like this if we're not.
So does the county, if they had insurance, would it not cover
It does not cover us.
our each? Okay.
Yeah, we asked. We are not named as additional insured.
So, it's the first party claim portion of it. So, computer forensics, so there would be some type of forensic analysis. Patient costs, call center costs, protection services, that's breach, public relation costs associated with that. They would pick up penalties regulatory proceedings. So if you're doing a credit card, there are things like PCI fines, credit cards. Even though that credit card machine is a third party, they're not responsible for your liability associated. We pick up cyber extortion costs. Where we've seen it on the manufacturing side, where shut down your entire computer system, manufacturing company product on the track. A pushing fee.
We just saw the United States paying hackers in Russia. Like literally, the federal government had to do that. It's crazy.
So business interruption costs, you incur costs. Not likely that you're going to have business interruption.
Can't send our newsletter unless we pay.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So you have briefing costs, which are actually linkage to the computer system itself. $30,000 from an hack. Sublimited on the briefing, sublimited to cybercrime coverage is $1 million. Covering funds transfer fraud, social.
Are there other requirements other than the MFA for that?
No, MFA is primarily what it is. So you have remote access.
There's software we can download, authenticators,
Yes.
you know, where,
Microsoft has
correct, yep. I have it on my phone just for my bank accounts.
If I can get just consensus from the board to or look into the cyber's liability, we will work with the county IT services on how
Got
to
my
get
consent.
that in.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think, Yeah.
And did you say for the prior claims, they would be covered for a certain period?
We have full prior acts under the talk about public officials. What are we talking?
Everything, public officials.
So anything that is a claims made for that we are not trying to put on full prior acts. So anything that would have occurred in those policy years that we had tried it, reported later, are not trying to not going to be responsible.
Very good.
So reserve policy, so there's no gap coverage, we have to make sure.
so yes, we're covered.
And so what about existing situations?
Existing situations, the carrier that is, that's been reported to, that is currently, so I have not tried it, it's still doing that. Take care of that. We've met the necessary reporting things. Reported it to the carrier while we're insured by that carrier. So they have a responsibility to pay.
Bottom line is we're covered.
You're covered.
Yeah.
Your general liability, your auto, or all of them, the only one that is
When we did this renewal last time, did it increase a year ago? What, do you remember the percentage?
The increase last year was pretty hefty. It was about 20%.
Oh, so this is significantly
It's
less
gone down.
percentage-wise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I've done a loss analysis. This is the red is the premium collected. Sorry. Blue is the claims paid, the red is the premium. So this is not current to what our claims are for the 20. So this is reflective of last year. You can see that the 3 prior years have been pretty healthy. 5-year loss analysis last year, we were operating at 70% loss. So carriers want to see loss ratio to be less. In most cases, they want it below 50%. Break even.
But
Do we have that?
we trended favorably for a little
We
bit.
did for a while, and so we've had, and you've had years like that. Had really good years where you trended very favorably. So you can see that at the beginning.
Mhm.
And we had a few years before that, and then
What's the year, what are the years there? If you don't
So
mind.
this is a 5-year loss analysis. It goes from 2016 to 2020 to 2021 period. Last one.
Big one. Okay.
So it does not have what we have currently open for the 21 through policy period. Claims that were in that. The reason I don't have that is strictly carrier program administrator that I'm working with, not able to get that information.
I believe it was predominantly fire.
As soon as I get that, I can apply.
Do you have copies of that?
Yes.
Chart for us?
Can we
Yeah.
get copies? Yeah.
You can approach.
We're very formal.
So
Thank you.
with this, so are we going from the 9 million excess down to the 5 million is what
Well,
you're saying?
That is currently what we have, yes.
And that's
but
included in the, so
that's
that,
included in that previous breakdown that you have in front of you. What we're trying to do is get 4 million excess. So it would be, in essence, it would be another excess policy. It would go above, we'd have different layers and different carriers within those layers. Have Zurich in the first 1 million, 3 million range. We have a $5 million layer that goes over top of all of the Zurich policies through AAIC, which is a corporation, is a unit. Then we're looking to get another 4 million on top of 5 in the underlying. So, that
You don't know how
right now,
much,
that
you don't,
carrier is-
and so you don't.
Communication I got from the broker, just from talking through it, again, this was hot off the presses on Friday, so I was really scrambling. I was unaware that sort of doing 5 million capacity. So when I talked to this other market, the indication he gave me was $10,000 or higher, depending upon underwriting information. We had a communication where, he was kind of looking at some of the claim information, some of the information that's provided out there on the internet. Underwriters do a search, and they see what kind of activity is going on in the townships, zoning issues, things like that. We'll look at that and bearing the impact on that cost. So
What
right
did-
now, the best I can give you is a ballpark on that. Certainly do our best to try and find you coverage for that port. Worst case scenario would be $5 million umbrella.
so I'm sorry, what did you say the increase was for last year?
The increase for last year, I believe, was around.
Okay, so if this had been the same policy, the increase is about 17%, is that correct? So the 10% increase is based on us reducing our amount of our umbrella coverage, basically, and some
No,
other
the
things.
package itself, your umbrella price actually went down. So last year's umbrella was for 9 million, although there is an increase, obviously, in price. Net cost is actually percent on that. Higher situation.
But increases in other
But
areas.
it will increase, if we get, you get the $10,000 premium for that excess score, you would be looking at across the board, an increase of 10%.
Sorry, say that again. If we get it up to the 9.
If the indication I received from that other market.
Right.
Accurate with his estimate, probably around $10,000 with that. Your net overall cost, adding that back in, be about 10%.
So what we're seeing here that says 4%, it would actually be 10 when we get to that 9.
Yeah,
Okay, that's helpful.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's still very reasonable compared
Yes.
to.
Pretty reasonable.
Yeah,
based on
definitely.
what the market conditions are.
I think we've seen it go up pretty much over the years.
Historically, we are seeing, that's where we are right now in the industry. See downward push on rate.
I just want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples, because if our coverage is decreasing,
Yes.
Yeah,
from
that makes
last year.
sense. All
And
right.
so with the public officials, the employment practices liability, those did go up substantially.
Yeah.
Is that, like with other townships and entities, is that comparable to other ones in the area?
Well, I think it's dependent upon loss ratio. So I mean, not only do they look at the loss ratio, they are looking at specific lines. So when they see activity in specific lines, see great increase varies from
It's kind of a lagging indicator too, based on what you said, where you have an issue that pops up in 20 whenever, and they fight it until,
right.
and it's not settled. Then the year it's
Correct.
settled is more so impactful than the year it initiated. So
Because it's all based on the date of the report. Right. Reserves that are set out there. So you can have initial reserve get into litigation, and all of a sudden other things are uncovered, and all of a sudden there's so you do have some open claims right now. Don't have, unfortunately, don't have. Once I get that, I can show you
Can you
that,
do that?
and I'll include that in
I think one was just closed.
that.
One was just closed
Good,
in our favor. So
good, that's great.
yep.
So basically, the more controversy and issues happening at a township, the higher your premiums will be in general, which we've seen in the past. Okay.
Yeah, especially in that line. So that the carriers have been seeing this, a lot of it is litigation costs. That's the cost of the substantial. Even if you're not liable for it, costs that are going into the increase in that cost ratio. Some of the there's more spin in the defense.
Thank you. Right. I know we had already called for public comment, and there was none, but I think we have some now. We had a couple of meetings ago. We had some public comment about road work that was done in a neighborhood, and there being some unsatisfactory outcomes related to that in a driveway. I had committed to going out and looking at it, which I did. And so I want to invite Mr. Victor. You want to come up and kind of
You gave a long presentation. But my issue is I stated 30 days ago about the damage that's done to my driveway. Two individuals came out here. We both saw it. And he also saw that damages. And a gentleman coming out on the 18th. Payment is due on complete. Record is expired. But it's a great idea. I'm not asking you things to pay. Gentlemen I have seen lives. happening. So, what that kind of all relay, we can't also as close as possible. Now, my question, I have a question. Why do you I still believe that explanation yes they not now. I'm one of you all have contract stated set up for you. But here's the
Oh, I didn't know you went out too. I came out that day and took a look. Um, for me, the concrete deterioration is pretty consistent on driveways in the whole area with salt. If they're not sealed and my driveway's pitted and chipped away because of salt damage, so it wasn't sealed. The part for me that I'm more concerned with isn't the pitting and chipping; it's the height differential between your driveway as it existed previously and the overlay that was done with the asphalt. And what? Well, let me wrap up. It created like a channel, and so you may have had the pitting and corroding over time anyway if the concrete wasn't sealed, which I know to be true. But it's not going to be to the level it would be with creating a valley of salt water essentially sitting on the edge of that concrete. When you look at where the pitting is, it's directly where that valley is. In other words, if it was salt just pitting it away, it would be all over it, and it's not. It's specifically where that kind of valley is, where the new asphalt created a trench. It seems more isolated to that area. And we have some work to do with the contractor anyway that I'll catch up with Mr. Bowers over when we have time. We've talked briefly about it, but I don't know if what your opinion is. But we created a large bump at the end of your driveway, and I agree with you. Offering to cut that and put regular cement there to meet that when that's not what you currently have. It's not consistent. Yeah, different adjectives. Same.
Do you want to explain the situation what was being alleged, the damage? I thought it was snowplow or something.
No, so when we resurface roads, they put there's a little bit of milling done typically, and then they put a new layer of asphalt over the substrate.
Milling of
The
Taking
old.
down.
So they create enough
the
of
old
a
asphalt.
they create enough of a rough surface so that the new stuff will bind, and they level it, clean it up a little bit. They try and get it to grade more so with the curbs and stuff like that. And in Mr. Harris's neighborhood, what they did is they just put it out into the grass and covered it without any substrate. So the grass and stuff is growing up through the.
Does anyone have pictures of?
I could have taken them. I don't have them, but
Try to get a graph.
But what they did when they go into the existing driveway, and we just had our driveway repaved, so I'm very familiar with this. there was a spot where they didn't cut enough away. And what it does is it creates the height differential. Now, as long as you're graded down, that's not typically a bad thing. The problem with his specific driveway is they created a pitch that runs into it. So it comes in and then up. So they created kind of a valley where if they're plowing, as you can imagine, they don't plow his driveway, but they plow the street. So then the snow is sitting at the end of the driveway. He goes out, shovels his driveway. As it melts, it's going to settle into that valley.
Oh, okay, got
So
it.
the salt water is sitting on his concrete, and it will, regardless if it's sealed or not, it'll eventually deteriorate that.
But, excuse me. That is, it's not just my home. It's in the home.
In the whole neighborhood?
On my right side.
So there's damage on everybody's driveways?
No, everybody, because everybody doesn't have stamp.
Your neighbor does right next to you, though.
Right, he does.
Does he have damage?
I don't know, but I know prior to that, the previous owner did, so he had to cut a section.
So your driveway is stamped concrete the whole
Just at the
driveway?
end.
Just
It's
like a
this
little
cool border.
5-foot board.
Yeah.
Well, that.
It's pretty.
Okay, I'm trying to
That's
visualize.
edge, because everything's edge.
The skirt, like where it ties into the street, it's
And
decorative.
it does go up all along the side.
Yeah, and then on the sides. It's just a situation where
My question is, if you repair the skirt, the area of the driveway with the damage, how do we prevent this from happening next year?
You have to put I went to the concrete company. They stated that you have to put each year before, once you repair it, each year, right before the change of the season, October, November, you have to put a salt repellent compound on it.
So like a sealer, and that you as the homeowner, that's your responsibility.
Exactly, not yours, it's mine.
And did that happen last year between the paving and the winter?
As far as.
Like, did you put that sealer down last year?
That's on me because I wasn't having the issue. And I did not have the issue until the streets were done.
as they were lifted, the level
Right.
was changed.
Everything was flush.
And that happened, and the street was paved in the summer?
Right around this time, last year.
Okay.
And this happened this winter.
Gotcha.
Was the contractor possibly liable if they did a faulty job?
I don't know.
I've
that
never
answer.
heard, who was the contractor, Cyrus, do you know?
DLC was the kind of coordinating contractor for it. It's through the county bid, I think. We'll say DLZ will be our. main
So
contractor.
what's the liability of that? Because if, you know, any kind of work could be done incorrectly, they could have done concrete and not mixed it right, or done any kind of specifications incorrectly. What, do we have any recourse to get them to come back and redo the work or to correct any errors that they make? Because I'm sure that happens, and I don't even know who goes out and, even if you went out to inspect the job, you wouldn't be able to see all issues, you know? Well, all issues in general. I mean, like if the concrete, you know, if it wasn't. Yeah, but I'm saying in general that contractors make mistakes, and how do we rectify that? Or
She's talking bigger picture township.
yeah,
I'm trying to shrink it down.
yeah,
Okay. What I'm saying to you is the fact that prior to them coming and doing the streets, the bill prior came out. They didn't even know that our community existed. He came and walked around the community, didn't know it was out. And these streets had nothing. By 8:15.
Oh, this is the first work.
Bill Cowan, he's talking about the prior Parks Director.
Well, I'm sorry. What street do you live on?
I live on,
Glen Oak. So it hadn't been repaved since
It's up by Bell Canyon.
30
It's been,
years.
it's never been done, period.
never done.
So I want to reiterate something important here. Like in our neighborhood, when they did Blue Holly or what have you, they have the concrete curbs and the skirting at the front of the driveways, and those are all done before the asphalt driveways are put in. And so when they go into those neighborhoods, they mill down the existing asphalt so that when they pour the new, it lines up with the driveways. And in this neighborhood, they don't have that. So when they went, and you can see if you go to the yard, you can see that they put about that much asphalt over the top. And so what happened is there's a lip about that high at the end of this gentleman's driveway, where before he could drive out without going over a bump, the water is now graded to go down towards his house, whereas before it actually goes down and up, whereas before it was smooth. So what he's saying is there's no need to seal because the runoff would go away and go
Yeah.
down into the
But
drainage.
that's not your neighborhood.
No,
There wasn't need to
It's
seal
called-
when-
it's Glen Oak Street.
I know it's confusing.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I thought it was
How
the area.
confusing, huh?
So it's an older
It's off
neighborhood.
Bell Canyon.
Is it
Larger lots, larger homes.
that bluffs? Or is it
Yeah.
bluffs of Bale, or what's it?
You have to understand, when these streets were done, the criteria was different.
It's like the shores. Like
So
the
no
sh-
sidewalk,
no sidewalks, no
So it
nothing.
goes, I got you. I thought it was in your
Yeah, so they
neighborhood,
can't
there's
tie
sidewalks.
into
Okay.
it. So if they went through the shores today, and when they go through the shores, they have to mill going into the driveways
Yeah.
so that everything's still sloped.
Yeah.
If they did raise up the shores, the driveways like this and like this, the street comes in, it would
Oh,
create
yeah,
a
it makes-
problem.
And when was, but I'm just saying, when we do the lowest and best bid on different projects that, you know, where we give them the specs, did that include specifications for doing the road a certain way, or can they just come in and slop stuff anywhere and just, you know?
These are all county specs, so we follow, as a township, we fall under the county bid price. So the county collects all townships' road projects for the year. They compile them, they put them in a big bid package, they put it out to bid, and we are essentially, even on my report today, we accept the bid or we
Yeah.
reject the
Oh,
bid.
yeah.
If we reject it, there's not another option. It's all
Yeah.
vetted through the county. So with the specs that we follow, we rely on them. They have a project inspector through the county who oversees the
Okay.
project, as well as our road superintendent, public works manager, Aaron James, will oversee
So is
the
it
project.
possible that specs were not adhered to? Because if the entire development is like that, that sounds like it's a situation that.
It depends on the grade of each driveway.
Yeah.
And
So-
what he's saying is on his side, when you go out and look at it, you can
The whole
see
side?
just that right side
they-
because it's on a hillside.
Yeah.
So you can't grade two, pieces of pavement against each other. You're going to create a drainage ditch.
Yeah.
And so when you look at how much asphalt was actually put on at the yard, you can see how substantial of a lift. My thing is, I think this is a bit unique because of the neighborhood design in our community. We're not going to see this too
Happening
often.
often.
But
Could it
it's
happen in the shores though?
no, because they mill down the front of the
They
driveways
always- Okay.
and they marry them together so that there's a
I guess I just don't understand why it didn't happen at your neighbor's driveway. And it did happen yours. And I did not look, I just noticed there wasn't cracking there. I didn't look to, I didn't measure yours as a 1.5 inch lip and his is a 1/4 inch lip. I didn't look at that.
The realization that transpired with that is the fact that the prior owner, that same year,
Mhm.
before you did the streets, he resealed everything.
Okay.
He did work on his home prior to him selling it. Jazzing it up on that. But I did,
Okay.
prior to me moving in, the woman, she had did it. I had not done the work. I think I had stated that to you, that I was going to do the work regardless on my concrete this year. But this transpired.
he's a new resident, so he's just
Oh.
You've been there for what, like 4 years? Isn't that what you told me?
Three.
3. Okay.
So even the three, but would he have known to
But
seal
see,
that
but-
section? How would you even know to do that?
You
you
have
to if it's
You
drained.
should
right?
have to.
I think it's a
Right.
contractor issue.
When you purchase a new home, you learn.
Right.
You learn as you go.
I mean, the other thing I bring up too is I'm not. To me, the chipping and corroding, and I don't mean to discount what you're saying about that. I'm less concerned with that fundamentally. Okay, the part for me that I view as township, something we need to consider is that we've created a water retention area. Regardless if the chipping and corroding happens now,
Yeah.
it's a problem for his driveway. We need to get the skirt tied back in on grade with the road that we paved. He would have had to have redone the stamped concrete to tie it in at grade either way. Doesn't matter about the chipping and corroding. And, the sealing, I think that's just an additional gripe. The part for me that stuck out, having just redone our driveway, and they did it incorrectly at ours. At the garage, they didn't cut enough out. So at the front of my garage, there's exact what he's dealing with.
See,
Oh,
excuse
okay,
me,
gotcha.
when Ben came out, when you came out, we just stayed at my driveway.
Right, we did.
But when Ben came out, I parked on the street and I said, I want to show you something. And we walked down the line of the block.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And he saw the cracks, and it was continuously cracked.
Because they paved over where there was no sub,
Right, continuously.
they went too
So
far.
cracking
to
on the
sides.
actual street or cracking
Yeah,
on people's
it's just a
driveways?
bad, it was just a.
When was
So
this?
it's like a domino. effect. When he came out, he saw the crack, but since he came out, since you guys came out, it's starting to crack even more. So eventually, before this year is out, it's going to hit
Yeah.
my home.
Yeah, it's, well, what's gonna happen, the edges that don't have any road underneath them or any, they don't have 57 stone and 304 stone compacted on top of that, and none of that's done, right? So it's literally just asphalt that's bare asphalt, it's literally rolled on top of the grass, and you can tell because the grass is growing through it now. And it's about that, that far over. All of that's gonna fall off.
Sounds awful. I mean,
Because I stepped on it, and you saw me step on it.
Well, don't tell them all of our secrets, Victor.
Okay. but,
Instead of
but,
the-
but the realization of it all, it's happening on the other block too. They're complaining about it because it's only on the right hand side. Now on the left hand side, when you're coming in, it's on this side. But when you're going out, everything is smooth on the opposite side.
Yeah, it's got a big lip on the one side where he's at.
Silas, is it possible to? I mean, what's the cost that you're requesting? Is that that split? That's the half cost.
So that's half of the repair at the skirt.
It was $2,500.
Okay, so
I paid $12.50 already.
And the $1,250, but you were doing other work at the top part of your driveway
That's
too.
$12.50.
That was the $1,250. So you're asking for us to pay for the entire cost of the repair at the skirt.
Actually, $12.50. I told you that when you came.
I know, I'm still
My
confused.
work was going to be $12.50. Your work was going to be $12.50 because I have to do it as a package now. Now I got to pay $25 to repair the damage.
So the $1,250 that you were gonna do is up at the top of the driveway initially, before this cracking happened.
$12.50 that I put was in the inside of the driveway because it was starting to crack. So I was having that taken up.
Okay.
That was doing that regardless this year.
Right.
This was an expense that came out of nowhere.
Because they're raising because they gotta tie it in.
Right.
Yeah,
No, I
that's
understand.
another 12.
So, but I'm just saying, you're asking us to pay, because when I'm hearing you say we're splitting it, I hear that means I'm paying half of the work that because of the damage,
Okay.
but I don't think that's right.
Okay,
right?
let me simplify this for you. The total amount of the job is $2,500. What I paid so far was $625 for mine, $625 for yours. That's a total of $1,250. When you pay the $1,250, you paying your additional $625 plus the $625 that I already spot you all for your work. So that's the $1,250.
Gotcha.
And I pay my $625.
Could you get, in the interest of time, could you send that?
How much time do you need? I've got to got to my.
Well,
We need a copy of the quote
we
in
need a copy of
writing.
the quote. Could you send a copy of the quote to our administrator?
Yeah, he's got it.
Silas?
I already saw it.
Yeah, give it to Ben.
Yeah.
And then,
$2,500.
can you check with the county to see because we might have the same issue with every house out there to see, because it's possible that the contractor might be liable if the job was done incorrectly.
That's something that you have to deal with every other homeowner. I told you in the beginning of this conversation. That's their thing. I'm dealing with mine. Are you trying to add me on collectively with everybody else?
Right.
That's time consumption. I have a person coming up to my house on 18. I'm getting mine done. I don't care about what they do.
You're just trying to get whole on your end.
Yeah,
I'm doing mine.
But if the township is not liable for it and the contractor is,
Then that's something that you gotta deal with.
but they might need to come out and then do the repairs
That's something
themselves.
that you have to deal with as a township collectively. I'm talking to you as an individual.
Yeah, he wants to have it fixed now.
Period.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
tracking. Hang on. We're good. So what do you? I understand the collective liability concern here with that side of the street.
But if we approve this like right now without knowing, then we could potentially have every single person come in and ask for the same repair, and then the county, and then it's fixed, and then we fix them all, and then how did they even come out and inspect it and determine it was?
I do want to have the lips on the driveways on that side of the street inspected. And it's common sense. You can't have two grades pitched against
Yeah,
each
but-
other.
Who does that? Who does that inspection?
Yeah, Silas, can you contact the engineer and have them come out and look at it and tell that we think it's faulty and that they might be liable under their agreement? Okay. Like as soon as possible, but I don't want to set a precedent for every single homeowner, but I mean, and I don't feel like I don't have, all the information I
I
need.
understand that you want to play politics. I get it.
No, it's not politics,
Let me
it's,
finish, please. I get that. Like I told Eric, I don't do politics. I do people. Now, I pay my taxes. I pay my water. I pay it. Not the community. I pay it. I pay my bills. Whatever goes wrong with my house, I pay it. Or I put in a claim for my insurance to come out and fix it. I do it. Not come to you all to tell you this is what's going on with my home for you all to pay it.
did you check with your insurance company to see if they would cover it?
I'm not gonna check with my insurance company for damage that you all did.
We did not do this damage, that was
Okay,
not us,
you
the county did.
individually-
The county did the work.
Listen, you did not do it.
I did not, and neither
Okay.
did, the county did the work, a company
No,
called
we-
VLC did
We
the work.
we contracted them though, and that's
Yeah,
where
but we
have
didn't
this.
actually, but if they're liable, then they're liable. If we actually, we're not allowed to just pay anything out that we want. We would be personally liable for any funds that the auditor later determines that we paid out.
You
They're
just
incorrect.
had a gentleman here talking millions of dollars for signing, okay?
Right.
Millions, sued, getting sued, all right,
Mhm.
for signing, for computers. I'm telling you about my home.
He also,
And I don't care about him. Okay, you trying to mix apples and oranges.
we cannot legally pay this out. We need to check with our legal
I tell
counsel.
you what.
We cannot legally
1,
pay it
2,
out.
3, 4, 5, 6. 208, 208, 208, 208, 208, 208.
We cannot legally pay this out without consulting with our legal counsel, and
So,
I'm not
Pete-
going to engage in illegal
Pete,
acts.
now that you're on the hook,
208.
you're 208.
That's $1,250.
So Pete's on it.
Write
Pete's
your
our,
check, right out your pocket, and give it to me. And that's it. Simple as
We're gonna
that.
have to
so
pay-
Pete, what, since you're our legal counsel, what are your thoughts on this?
So I think if there's a termination that our contractor acting on our behalf caused damage, I don't think there's going to be an audit issue there.
But we would need to determine.
Absolutely. I mean, you obviously can't expend funds on private
Right.
property. That the auditor has made clear. However, if the township, through their contractor, was at fault, then certainly you have the authority at that time to correct the situation.
So two of us have looked at it.
But
I-
we would need to make a legal determination. You can't just pass a resolution. You
No.
need to lay out
I
the
think that's what
specifics.
Pete's doing right now.
Right.
Well, you need to have it a little more official
So
than that.
I'm not an engineer,
Right.
but I haven't talked to Silas about it. I don't
Eric
know.
is an
if-
engineer.
Yeah. So
And
certainly,
state
if this board, certainly if this board comes to the conclusion that they believe that the contractor performed faulty work, then they could make that.
Yeah.
They can make that
I
determination.
personally looked at it and I believe the lip's too high. It created a drainage issue. It's
But-
just common, just,
Have you ever
But I
done?
think you have a bigger issue as well, as you guys have identified, that we'll need to rectify.
But the problem is that you have to go through and make an official, I've done this several times in the past, you have to make an official determination. We've done other damages where you say, we determined that the township did this, and this is the resulting damage, and this is how we're going to make them whole. I don't think you can just do a resolution off the cuff that says, we believe that this damage was done by the township.
snowplow
I
hits
think-
a,
don't we need to
snowplow
have-
hits a mailbox, something like that.
Yeah, but then you make an official determination to cover us. Otherwise, you could just have people coming in and two trustees agreeing to pay for something on private property, and with some hidden
So Pete,
agenda.
what do you want us to
I mean,
do
my
here?
experience is this is what the auditor will say. The auditor will say if there is a rational basis for making your determination in terms
exactly.
of township involvement on expenditure of funds, public funds on private property, they will honor that rationale.
So-
I mean, that's what they've told me.
My
Yeah.
rational determination is the grading doesn't mesh up. We're gonna have to fix that and regrade it so that he doesn't have a 2.5 inch bump at the end of his driveway anymore.
So we can regrade it ourselves. So I don't think we can decide this today, though. I think we need to make an official determination. Because then the next person comes in and asks for the same thing, and then how do we?
So who do you want us to have officially determine this?
Well, I think you have, obviously Silas, I think you have your road super, and I think you have, the engineer. And if I can get something from them, and then I can respond to that saying, I think there's an issue there, and the township has the ability to expend funds. That's all an auditor would be.
Yeah,
That's all an auditor would
but
be.
it's going to take a couple or a few.
Yeah, we can go
days.
look at it and.
My part's
But I think
easy.
we
It's going to take me, if I get the information from them, it's going to take me 5 minutes to write that.
Yeah, but
So,
getting the
Get that done.
information,
But-
but over-promising right now is probably not a good idea.
Well, I think at the same time, what we can't commit to though is having that done. In other words, the engineer is going to go look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silas,
Not
can you get a copy of the specs too, and the specs for that?
And I don't know what
Yes,
the,
ma'am.
I don't know what the specs were. I don't know what the contract was. I don't know what the warranty period was. But all that, he is absolutely right. That is irrelevant as far as he is concerned. But that's the other issue that we need to deal with. But I think at least being able to help him in a timely fashion, having Silas, the road super, and the engineer basically green light the issue, send it to me. I can get an opinion, and then we can, we can help him out.
Yeah, but
Because regardless of the situation, whatever decision that you choose to say yeah and nay, I'm still having it done 2018.
And you can, if you pay for it and then we pay you back, and
That's,
just
I mean,
later on,
Exactly.
right?
That was the key.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be reimbursed on
But-
you all's part. It was not, hey, you did this, you gotta pay for it.
Yeah, I got
I'm
you.
not gonna have it done. I'm having it done regardless of my fault.
right, but we have to follow the process.
So-
We're limited by laws
Yeah.
and things. We
So
can't
two
just do
two
it.
things. We're going to have our team go out and get official work done so that we can legally go through what we need to go through in order to get this reconciled.
I understand.
Okay, and then the second thing is we're going shopping together because I got to get my fashion.
I agree with that.
Yeah, we'll do that, but we got to shop after.
Have some of my clothes.
Salvation
that
Army.
yet.
If you got nice clothes like that, give them to Salvation Army.
I'm getting them bits.
There you go. That's it. Okay, so
We
we'll
good?
We'll
We're
be in
good.
touch, yeah.
Okay, so we are all in agreement that it's going to get done.
well, we're in agreement that we're going to have the engineers go out, make a finding or make a statement in order to provide the board with a legal basis to do what we can.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, and I'd probably want to check with the auditor's office just to make sure,
We're
you
all
know,
in agreement.
because what if they say, well, you're not liable? And then-
that part of it.
I
We're in
just-
agreement.
I've been
We'll get
told-
done.
Related to
Simplify.
Yes, sir.
Michelle,
The 208 crew. All right.
see you in 30 days.
All right. Take care.
No. I will see Silas, you soon, 18 days, check. I come back and listen to you.
Someone get some pictures.
And I'll look better next time too. 'cause
Someone
we'll have-
send some pictures. You the interviews.
All right.
We need some pictures.
Okay. Any questions on the insurance?
No.
Everyone good with the resolution before us?
Is that, is this, where's the insurance? Oh, I know wrong.
Make a motion to approve resolution 22-167, renew contract with Zurich Insurance and American Alternative Insurance Corporation and McGowan Governmental Underwriters through Reinhardt Walters Danner Insurance Agency for liability and property insurance and risk management services, and further that Ms. Michelle Bonney shall be authorized to execute all documents necessary to accomplish the renewal.
And just to double check, so this is for the, for what the proposal we received with the reduced coverage, and he's gonna get back with us.
Correct.
So the 5 million excess, and he's gonna get back with us.
We have two pending lines that we are going to work towards. One's a
cyber.
$5 million coverage, excess liability coverage, The other is the cyber liability, once we have feedback on having that multi-factor authentication.
And then, so that
This-
4 million, right?
Yes, the cyber will not be included with this resolution.
And the
Yep, those are the two
yeah.
pending future actions.
So those
Yep.
would be, and the 4 million would be added on later. Okay, second.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes. We have no consent agenda items, so I'll make a
I'm sorry, Trustee Grumbles, I do have a couple agenda changes.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to add under fire report, all data. Under the administrative report, I'd like to remove the mission statement and core values as we need a little more time on that. I'd also like to move the settlement agreement discussion after the executive session today. And under old business, I had economic development update, but I don't have an update today, so I'd like to remove that as well.
Which one?
Under old business, economic development update.
Okay. I'm going to give a quick,
Okay, if you
No.
have something.
very quick.
1 minute.
That's all I have.
Oh, I have one thing I want to add to the operations report. I guess item E, Williamsville Cemetery.
What is it?
Williamsville Cemetery.
Any other agenda changes?
No.
Okay. Ms. Bonnie, are you good to call roll on the motion? I'll read.
For the consent,
Okay.
yes.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 22-168, approving the electronic record of the proceedings from the regular meeting held on April 18th, 2022, special meeting held on April 20th, 2022, zoning hearing, intervene crossing held on April 20th, 2022, and special meeting held on April 26th, 2022.
Second.
Trustee Grumbles?
Yes.
Trustee Faust?
Yes.
Trustee Knapp?
Yes.
Right. Alderman Zane.
Also mentioned, as part of our zoning resolution rewrite, we have an upcoming zoning vote of House Wednesday, May 11th. About what it does, questions of staff, all our zoning staff, and additional support staff will be present for that event. Questions, feedback as to what generally they would like to see. Other friends, other neighbors, and one who will come to this.
Are we, and I saw some social media traffic on that too, so it's the number one way to
So we,
listservs and social media, right?
So I believe on our Facebook and our website, staff has also been cards to every township residents, but we have sent out thousands.
I got one.
Yeah, I got one too. That's great. All right. Proposed dates for the two hearings? Anything? Ms. Bonnie?
Oops, I'm sorry, there's still more to the zoning report.
What's that?
There's still more to the zoning
Oh,
report.
okay. Go ahead.
Board of Zoning Appeal, we actually had 0 cases for this May meeting, but we should moving anyway, one for organizational items. at this stage. Not have a zoning commission meeting, but we do have one on Tuesday, May 20th, for application that night. Two of them, I mentioned a few weeks ago, they were initially slated for the zone timeline of when it would be by the county application. Very similar lot splits from FR1 to single family standards, FR1 district.
Would those developments have access to the subdivisions that were adjacent or from Southwold State? And do you know how many units are in either of both of those?
One is two.
They're small.
Ms. Knapp, this one is 3 lots, and they will have, well, they're proposing access both on South Old State and to the subdivision on Hayter Court.
Is that a higher density than the subdivision has?
No.
Interesting. Would that be part of that neighborhood? The homeowners association?
It might be. I think it's worth asking. Part of the application, from what I've seen, I don't think there was an intent to go into this.
Yeah, you think sometimes you have to add them into the deed restrictions. Okay. All right. Thanks.
And then we had one other application for that same meeting, requesting rezoning of 1 to 4 acres to allow indoor. Do this in my written report, but I did want to apply for the Department of Transportation Assistance Program. Should hear back on that application. And Alex was asking for the application. Of that application. Office, Scott Sanders.
Your work.
So yes, the next 2 items would be to schedule the zoning hearings, one for the overlay district amendments, and then the second for the Evans Farm single family amendment. I would like to do both of those on one evening, if that's okay for you all. Based on the calendar, looks like we could either do the 18th, the 23rd, or the 26th are options for a May evening.
My preference is the 18th. At least it's that last week of school for your senior. I don't know what that work. Although it's after graduation, so I don't know how that affects.
Wait, which the
We'll go with the
18th?
May
18, 23, and 25.
26, I'm sorry.
18th.
Definitely not
23rd.
26. That's the last day of school. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no.
Our
Okay,
best.
18th or 23rd.
Which is
The 18th is preference. for
yeah,
me, but
18th.
that
That's before graduation.
Is that okay?
Yeah, this should work good. What time?
At 6 p.m.
Yeah, and can we do the Evans one first?
Absolutely.
So did I hear that Wednesday, May 18th at 6 p.m. at Township Hall?
Yes.
Good for group 3. Thank you.
Ben, does that work for you?
That's great. Make a motion to approve Resolution 22-169, scheduled hearing date for zoning application 22-01, RCOD amendments for Wednesday, May 18th at 6 p.m.
Second?
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes. Make a motion to approve Resolution 22-170, scheduled hearing date for zoning application 22-04, Evans Farm, single-family planned residential district amendment for Wednesday, May 18th at 6 p.m.
Second.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes. All right. We'll move to operations report.
Good morning. One of the first issues before you today is adopting of new cemetery rules. This was something that's been several months in the making. Excuse me. Modernizing some of the rules that have been reviewed for a few years. A lot of work went into this, the review from Lisa's department with her and Todd on the financial side. Patty Lewis, who'd been handling this kind of intermittently the last couple of years, as well as Aaron James and several members from Robin's department as well. They handled the GPS side of things with the cemetery. So kind of taking the disjointed pieces and parts of the cemetery and how it's been operating the last few years and kind of pulling it together allows an opportunity to review the rules and the policies, some of the maintenance, and kind of just modernizing all the policies. So before you have a new set of cemetery rules, excuse me, there's nothing earth-shattering. Again, a lot of modernizations, kind of bringing things up to kind of where modern day is and allow us to function a little more cleaner, primarily with the Africa Cemetery. If there's no questions on that, I can keep going along here. The next item I have is a resolution and agreement to enter into for the pond out back here at 1680. Would like to work with Mad Scientists and Associates regarding the pond and the wetlands out back here. A couple years back, prior to my arrival, there was a study commandeered by the Township to review everything in and around that body of water, and it's in pretty rough shape and is ready for an overhaul. We've budgeted for funding to move this along, and this will be step one of that project, is to get the design put together with Mad Scientists and Associates. I would respectfully request the board's approval on that. The next item C is a 2022 OPWC application formality. We are looking to request funding through the OPWC for Gooding Boulevard repaving. This would be from the Len Fisher Bridge, make sure I get that right, south all the way to 23, including in front of 361 Fire Station. This REA is mandatory for the town or for the county to further the OPWC grant for us on behalf of the township. The last item I had was the agreement with Shelley Materials for the road improvements to follow the theme of talking about roads. And I know we'll get into this more later with Ms. Kraft and the levy discussion, but this agreement before you is the 2022 road improvement projects through the county bid. They came in slightly lower than the estimates, not much, but does afford us the opportunity to knock out about another 15 streets, I believe, this year. Through various mill and fill or overlays and striping, curbs, ramps, and gutters.
I had a question about the cemetery rules. So what was changed between what we had before and what was proposed here?
As I mentioned, a lot of it was just kind of updating some of the policies. This hasn't been reviewed in, it looks like, quite a few years.
Anything specific?
Specific things that we worked on were the sale and transfer of the lots. Some of that language was outdated a little bit, and through a legal review as well, it kind of helped us, again, kind of just bring it more to modernization. There was there's a lot of different inurnment and interment rights that be transferred, purchased for large groups, small groups, transferred around. It was really just kind of cleaning that up to protect the township in the future. The other ones were, a lot of the other regulations were related to maintenance that we changed as far as what's permitted at each grave site. In the monuments. Some of that was, again, outdated as well. The height, the width, the size, the components of the monuments, the plantings that are permitted, things like that that were more relative to maintenance.
Is that information going to anybody who currently has, I've got a friend whose son is buried there. So will they get a copy of the new?
Anybody who has the current data in our GIS system will allow us to communicate with them. They'll be able to see that as well. Then it'll be posted on our website as well for any future purchases.
I just wanted to make sure that the current families that have loved ones buried there would get this information, so they didn't inadvertently do something incorrect. Yeah,
it's a great question, and one of the things we found throughout this process, which again is probably common sense, but it's something you just don't think about much when you sell a cemetery plot and somebody buys it, 40, 50 years down the road. Well, where does that person live? Where are they? Do they still want the lot? There's a lot of questions like that. So we may not have accurate data for everybody that owns a lot, but the ones that we do have, we should be able to communicate with them.
So, like, when it talks about the live flowers and all that kind of stuff, was all that, it says no thorny flowers, trees, or shrubs will be permitted. Does that mean no thorny trees or shrubs, or just no trees or shrubs at all?
There are some things that are permitted, but the ones that are detrimental to maintenance, harder to maintain, easy for us to hit with a mower or kill, those are the ones that we're trying to keep contained within a certain area within the face of the monument. So essentially, this limits the stuff that's a headache.
Yeah,
and we
can
be
they plant
responsible.
trees and bushes?
Sorry, let me look back at this. No trees or shrubs at all. So they have to be potted and fit on the base of the
Where
monument.
does it say that?
It'd be item number 1 under general regulations.
Item number, well, it says no thorny flowers, trees, or shrubs. Should that say no trees, shrubs, or thorny flowers? There's a, no thorny flowers, yeah.
Comma,
there's a comma.
trees
Is that
or
okay?
shrubs.
Is that right? Okay. You know what I mean? Because it looks like it says thorny flowers. So it says potted plants, baskets, wreaths, and artificial flowers are permitted only on Easter, Memorial Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day. So was that from prior language?
It was cleaned up a little bit. There were, I think, there was a shorter window before of how long you're allowed to leave them out, and a little more specific. This allowed a little more broader permission for the grave owners to leave their potted plants and flowers out a little bit longer in more holidays.
Has there been, there were more holidays before?
There was less before.
Less.
We kind of broadened it a little bit to add a little bit more.
Has that been a problem for
No.
people leaving stuff around or?
Yeah,
Well,
leaving
like-
stuff around. Yeah, it's easy to go if you're in town on Mother's Day and you live several states away, just to go leave flowers or whatever and not pick them back up. So
You
this
guys
at least
pick 'em
leaves a
up?
time frame. We do, yes.
And what about like Christmas? Do people ever put things?
Yeah, but there's no maintenance necessarily during Christmas time, so that's usually
Okay.
part of a spring cleanup at the cemetery.
So if someone did leave something, then when they saw it, they would just pick it off. So that would be like de facto 5 days anyway.
Yeah, and there in that 5 days
Or
is loose.
birthdays, you know, you go to someone's grave on their birthday or.
Yeah, correct. And it provides a little leeway for the township from a maintenance standpoint. If something is dead, rotted, a grave blanket as an example, by the time we get to mowing in the springtime, there's a little spring cleanup and anything that we can pick up that doesn't look good and doesn't represent cemetery well,
Okay.
fairly certain that the
So
grave
they'd be
owners will
pretty
understand.
flexible overall, but these are just rules. So
Yeah, just
that-
kind of the guidelines
You
to
know.
follow, and there's a little bit of leeway in them.
I just want to make sure. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on the operations report? Make a motion to approve resolution 22-171, adoption of rules and regulations for both Africa and Williamsville Cemetery located in Orange Township, Delaware County, Ohio.
Second.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes. Make a motion to approve resolution 22-172, authorizing the Director of Operations to enter into an agreement with Mad Scientist Associates LLC and agree to authorize issuance of a purchase order to Mad Scientist Associates LLC in the amount of $48,300 regarding Orange Township Ballpark pond improvements.
Second?
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Now, that's not going to dramatically change the Township Hall pond, is it?
No, there'll be some reshaping. It'll be drained, dredged completely. We'll start over with the whole thing.
So
Uh,
is it the exterior? Yeah, because it's in bad shape, right? Will the
Yeah.
exterior be changed? So will that?
I mean, the shape.
The
Yeah,
shape will, yeah, but it'll still look, act, and feel like a pond, just a much cleaner, healthier, and sustainable pond.
Make a motion to approve resolution 22-173, authorizing Township Administrator to execute a request for engineering assistance with the Delaware County Engineers Office regarding Gooding Boulevard repaving.
Second?
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes. I'm going to make a motion to approve resolution 22-174, authorizing the Director of Operations to enter into an agreement with the Shelley Company from the 2022 Delaware County Road Improvements Program bid awarded, and to authorize issuance of a purchase order to Shelley Company in the amount of $1,130,000 regarding Orange Township 2022 road improvements.
Second?
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. And I'll add to, I know Miss Knapp had a question about Williamsville Cemetery, but I would like to add to just the appreciation for the assistance from staff that's worked on the cemetery policy, and the disjointed nature of that now bringing it under one umbrella has been very helpful. Kim Mahaney was a huge reason for this coming together. So just want to kind of publicly thank everybody for that, and be happy to answer your questions about Williamsville cemeteries too, as well, Ms. Knapp.
Oh, yeah. Well, so the Lewis Center Realty Association, they do an annual project somewhere in the area, and they are they've picked the Williamsville Cemetery. They've requested putting a sign on it, and they've provided me. And unfortunately, my printer died yesterday, so I couldn't print it out. But they've requested to put a sign that's really nice, and it's going to cost about $1,000. On the sign, it just says Williamsville Cemetery, established 1974. If that's correct. It's very simple.
What's the size of that?
Yeah, it's
It's rejected by the zoning commission.
well, we still have to get it. With music
Neon
and
green.
lights, yes. No, it's just plain. It's I think it's vinyl. Yeah, it's vinyl, so it won't deteriorate. And they would also like to, and they'll give me the date and more details. But it's going to be, it will be donated in June, and they would like to come out and put mulch too. Come out and mulch the cemetery.
Okay.
Are we allowed to do that? And we can talk about it, but they just want to do a project to beautify the area. And
Yeah, absolutely.
it was kind of a forgotten cemetery, and has a lot of historical significance. Actually, I looked into it.
Yeah, it's very unique.
It is the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to work with them or you on that.
Okay.
Just we can connect after the meeting
Yeah,
or
I'll give
another
you more,
time.
but yeah, it's they're going to be giving like several hours at a time plus a really nice sign. So and it says established 1974. I assume that that's correct. We can check into that.
Yeah, we'll have to check into that. I also encourage you or myself or whoever to check with Caroline as well, as far as branding and making sure it matches other signs at the other cemeteries as well,
I
and
didn't
kind of
show it to you,
matching
but
those up.
It doesn't have any. Actually, it doesn't have any brand. It's just very simple. It doesn't have signage now. Just looks like that. It's really
Okay.
simple.
Yeah, and I don't know if we want to add Orange Township, any of those things as far as the ownership side of things, but just something we can certainly talk about offline.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll also add for the board, due to recent zoning approval with the BJ's wholesale, there'll be a pathway extension adjacent to the cemetery. So there are preliminary discussions in place about connecting that and looking at that triangular lot with the Williamsville Cemetery and within the township property of maybe considering what we can do with that corner to kind of pretty it up a little bit. So this might play into that pretty well.
Yeah, I wonder what side that sign should go on then. Oh, we can talk about that.
Absolutely.
No thorny bushes.
Or
Thorny
trees.
bushes, no trees, no shrubs.
Okay. Chief McNeil.
Good morning, Board. One thing I have today is a resolution for authorizing adoption and execution of automotive information system service agreement with Liability. So one of the things that Mr. Worley needed was a way to track his parts and also invoicing the other townships that he provides service to. And so we had him kind of go look on the mechanic side to see what was out there. And we were also looking at a couple of things. He brought this company out data. We did a demo between myself, Mr. Worley, Ms. Bonnie, and also Ms. Lewis. We all sat down and did this demo to see what it would have. And the good thing about this is it's great for the invoicing. It can basically go under Liberty Township, and they can put all vehicles under there. And whenever he needs parts or what vehicle he's working on, it'll basically come out what it is. It'll track it. There'll be I know he likes using the carbon copies still. He's kind of old fashioned, but there'll be electronic copy of stuff being worked on. There's also ways to look up to know how much a vehicle has been worked on, which is great for us when we're trying to say, hey, the vehicle is starting to have issues, and to be able to come to the board. But also, it allows him to track what the parts he's selling and what it costs, so there's better fiscal tracking of that also. And then it has the other side of it where it's the maintenance side. It actually allows him to go in and help diagnose what's wrong with the vehicle. He can enter the vehicle in, what it is. It'll say 90% of the time this is what the problem is. Come and bring up different diagrams and stuff. So it does both purposes. The purpose that we've been looking for, tracking, make sure that things are being accountable, and also providing a way for him to invoice other agencies, but then also helps him on the flip side to be able to work on the vehicles as a whole.
Any questions? Motion to approve resolution 22-175, resolution authorizing the adoption and execution of an automotive information system service agreement with all.
Second.
And do we want the fire chief to be the
I was going to have you do it.
okay.
Michelle Bonnie will execute the agreement and substantially that form on file with the township, along with any changes or amendments thereto, provided that the approval of those changes and amendments by the representative and character of those changes and amendments are not being inconsistent with this resolution or adverse.
Okay, I agree with that.
Okay, so second, Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumples?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. I appreciate it.
Scrapped.
All right, let's start with an easy one. Approving and accepting a revised certificate of resources. This was due to a check from December in the Parks Fund that didn't get cashed. So the way we have to do that through UAN, we have to void it out of last year, which makes last year's beginning balance $584.79 bigger. So we had to do a new certificate of resources. So that's the first resolution. The second one is simply adding Mrs. Flynn, giving her a credit card, since she'll be doing quite a bit with for events. So that's the last resolution I have. So if we want to approve those, and then we can get into road forecast, if that's okay.
That sounds good. Make a motion to approve resolution 22-176, accepting and approving a revised certificate of resources.
Second.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes. Make a motion to approve resolution 22-177, authorize the fiscal office to obtain a credit card to First Commonwealth Bank for events and communication coordinator.
Second.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Okay. Just make a note here so I don't forget. Okay, roads forecast. So I sent this out to the team.
Can you expand
And-
that? Zoom
I
in.
mean, you can't see that? I made it so it should have printed on legal, but I don't think it did, so it would have been bigger for you guys, because there's a lot of data here. And Silas, feel free to jump in and anywhere and way you want to. But what I did was I took, if you looked at the Excel spreadsheet, you'll see I have a sheet for each of the 4 funds that can be used for roads. They are the motor vehicle license tax, the gasoline tax, the road levy, and permissive motor vehicle tax. So I took the revenue expected for those 4 funds and rolled them up, and that's what you saw on the front sheet. And then I rolled up this year's planned appropriations across those 4 funds. And I also summarized right there, like major expenses kind of expected 2023 and forward for the term of the levy that stops collecting at the end of this year. Then if we pass a new levy here in November, it would collect 23, 24, and 25. And the total collection for the levy I just sent you guys this morning is around $670,000, let's call it, for our existing half mills levy. One other thing with kind of the estimated major projects, this doesn't include any salaries, or it doesn't include like repairs and maintenance. We did include a plow truck, in 2025. And it doesn't include things like fuel, but it's basically the big projects that are out there. And I could have done it to make this even look more, to make it look worse than that. Which is probably something I probably should have done looking at it now. So I should have encumbered, like for the Bale Canyon Phase 2, that total cost of that phase is $4 million. So once we sign the PO or the work authorization to begin that work, in all honesty, I will probably have to encumber all $4 million. That's what we've done for our previous projects. So that would then move that $3 million in 2024 when we're actually spending it to 2023 as far as encumbering those funds. Hopefully that makes sense. I know Lisa, I'm sure you. So hopefully that makes sense. I also did put send you guys a separate Excel spreadsheet. We wanted to go back just because Erica wasn't on the board during this time and Ben wasn't on the board for part of this time to kind of show some of the projects we have done and where some of this money has gone. That worksheet by chance? It's the other file. Oh, you're just in the backup. Yeah, keep going. What's next? Okay. Keep going. Nope, it's not there. Okay, it was another file, but it basically speaks to, how much we traditionally spend about 70 or 80,000 a year on rock salt, for example. We bought our last plow truck in 2021. Some of those are just kind of lining out some of those items so you can see what have we historically been spending our money on. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at that. I know I have that printed out too.
And then the monetary values are inclusive of all grants expected and everything else, correct?
Yeah.
They are not.
No.
Those are hard costs without anything else.
So, I reached out because Michelle and I had met last fall with a couple of folks that manage the bond fund for Delaware County. So I reached back out to them about 3 weeks ago asking, is there any money left in the bond fund? Liberty is using that bond fund for their firehouse as well as their new township building. Asking, hey, is there money left? If so, kind of what is it looking from a rate standpoint? And they are meeting on Wednesday of this week, and Doug Dalton, the advisor there that had been here to present, will give me a call on Thursday to let me know if that's an option for us to go, because it's a lot cheaper to leverage their bond fund versus going it out alone. If we decide we want to go that direction, our options are we do nothing, and forecast is what the forecast is. We stick at the current $500,000 levy. We do a $500,000 levy with an increase, or we do an increase in a future year, or we look at either we try to issue bonds or using the Delaware County fund. Kind of what I see as the options. You guys are been at this a lot longer than I have. So if you have other ideas on how to finance some of this road work, love some suggestions.
Yeah, we can talk now about the economic development update. So I know we're in the negotiation phase right now on the TIF agreement. And do you happen to recall the total projected dollar amount from that? Depending on if we go 15 or 10 or 20 or whatever the two, it was substantial.
Well, I just can't remember.
Yeah.
But what is the timing of that? So that takes some time to.
It's gonna be a lag.
Yeah.
So there's a lag. I guess the point is that once the auditor makes their assessment and they say, the property, assessed value of the property is X amount, and so we'll know at that point what annual revenue from that would be expected. That's where we can bond against that revenue stream, knowing a provable revenue stream or projected revenue stream as a township. And the other thing is that we're still waiting, I think, on the finalizing our jet agreement, which we just had another party come into. So we've got Sheets, BJ's, and the abutting commercial property there. I think we left out the apartments. Is that correct?
We left out the apartments, and I know Michelle and our office are working on some, possibly adding some others and discussing, other entities joining the jet as well. Going back to the TIF, that's going to happen. We know that's going to happen. So that'll happen relatively quickly. So the lag won't be too long. But you're probably talking about a year, probably a year or two before you start seeing revenue. But since we know they're building it's gonna happen quickly.
Right.
Because they have to complete the construction process, and then it takes about a year before. That's it? Is that
Well,
right?
we're actually going to file, we'll probably file the paperwork prior to them. I mean, as soon as we get the deal done, we'll probably file the paperwork because they're already moving.
Trees and dirt. Yeah.
Correct. So that'll happen relatively quickly.
And then as far as the auditor's projections and things, we can come up with that in order to, and as far as bond programs, there's no reason that we can't leverage the county bond program still, even with that.
Yeah, that would help with repayment, and that'll help with us
Yeah.
qualifying.
So as
if
those
there is a
revenues are paid,
revenue stream that's going
we're
to
paying
come
off
that
our
way.
bond, right? But it's a lower rate with the county, and so it's beneficial to all parties, plus it's partnership with our county. So all favorable and prevents us from having to raise tax, which is key.
Can we use any of the remaining ARP funds that we have? Michelle and I were talking about that the other day, and
That is an option, definitely.
I was
and
thinking
not
we
a
had
bad option
something
to
like
at least
that.
get us over the
Two-
hump.
I think we had something like 2 million that of the 3.1 that we had.
Yeah, we understand we've only gotten 1.5 million. We get the next 1.5 million in September of this year, so it's not showing in the fund yet. But we will have. We've spent, I just did my report, like 187,000 so far because we did the land, $91,000 worth of land, I think, if I remember correctly. So we've got about, we will have about 2.8 million, call it, of ARP funds.
And some of that we would
We have
use
some
for the
plans,
maintenance
yes.
building and for some, Michelle and I, she's got.
But yeah, there are other plans for that money too. So this
Right.
is it's a great discussion to have, kind of prioritizing where those funds go.
I guess the point being, if we have grant money, we've gotten some pretty substantial commitments from the county with their Transportation Improvement District and the funds that they have available there. With Shanahan Road, we've had preliminary discussion with one of their trustees in Berlin on shared cost structure there with the engineer's office. I met with them. And so, these are the holistic number. I think when we start taking out grants, when we start taking out, other entities, we start looking at the Transportation Improvement District kickbacks, OPWC, ODOT, different grant programs that are out there for some of these roads that tie into 23, for example, for relief traffic off of 23. And then at the same time, we have $2 million, just call it $2 million that we can use as a buffer while the TIF and JED begin to generate. And honestly, with the momentum on the JED and the conversation around exactly what we're talking about, right? It's the two that we've had so far, the entities have been really open to this and receptive. And I expect the bulk will be because, they understand what's at stake here. It's beneficial to these businesses to have investment in the community they're in and help drive traffic favorably so that people can engage in commerce, get to work, beautify the area, handle redevelopment projects that are needed. So safety services is a big part of that too. A lot of these big companies that come in, it's critical. We have a commercial group that just opened ATS Automotion. They're building a second building. I met with their safety director when I was on site. Had nothing but great things to say about the partnership to date with the fire department. So that made me super happy that you guys have already been in the facility. They have some pretty state-of-the-art technology, gone over egresses and different chemicals, and they're building a second one. Obviously, that'd be a wonderful entity for us to talk to about this. Their CEO is very open to partnering with the community. When I talked with him, I just see this going extremely well. And with JEDs, especially with existing businesses, ATS has engineers, scientists, robotics teams, and quite a few of them. And we double their footprint, double their employment count. Those are all going to contribute substantially to our township, financial structure and position. So I think we've got a good enough buffer where I'm comfortable. If we need to do a levy, we can always do that, independent of this one.
Yeah, we could always do another one next year if you wanted to, when some of these bigger dollar items come. Let's just remember though, we're bringing in an estimate of 4.3 million across the next 3 years, and right now we have $13 million in projects. So,
And I'm comfortable with,
We can't do all the projects. It's not enough dollars. That's what I just
do not
heard.
have a money tree,
Thank
okay? I'm just.
I think we can look at the projects a little differently, kind of based on what I was saying, where the TIF was well over $10 million. Let's just call it that. That covers the gap right there.
That's over 10 years?
Correct. And that's where if you bond against that, you're paying off the bond with your TIF payments. So we can still complete our projects, make our payments, and stay whole financially without raising taxes. That's the goal. Then you have JED money coming in as well, incrementally on top of that, that we can use for incremental projects, et cetera.
And just, and I don't want to throw any wet blankets on what you're saying, but let's also remember the county just did the reevaluations. They do them every 3 years, right? So they just did it last year. So the next reevaluation would be till 2024, right? I think it was last year they just did the reevaluation.
On
The
property
property.
values.
Yeah,
Yep.
property values. So just let's remember for all of this from a timing standpoint. I'm just, like I said, I'm not trying to be gloom and doom. I'm just trying to present facts as I know them. So
And that's,
How much is it projected to bring in?
the levy itself
Yeah.
is about $670,000.
Has it always been $500,000 all these years?
Yeah, what my understanding is, and maybe you remember this, is that, and Aaron James confirmed this when I just saw him in the office last week, that the intent of the road levy was for road resurfacing. Not, basically the paving program.
Yeah.
To help
Yeah,
supplement the
that's
paving
true.
program.
That is
So,
true, yeah.
Not to build new
and our
roads.
paving right now, if you look right here, we are running about $1 million. So we're running short on the levy funds just for road resurfacing, our road repaving program. It's been about $1 million a year consistently for the last 2 years. Silas, you feel free to step up in here, speak up anytime you want to.
You're doing a
here.
great job.
So we have been overrunning our levy, as it is with, and you can kind of see like for this year, we took the road resurfacing. Some of it came from gas tax, some came from some motor vehicle tax, and some came from levy. So we kind of had to, because we're running, we don't have the levy resources to commit to what our township requirements are for road resurfacing alone, let alone these major projects. Now, Silas has told me this is about the last of the projects. So, but
Maybe.
major projects, I should say, yes.
I would be in favor of spending some of the ARP funds if we have them because on needs rather than wants.
And I'll add to that too. The township appears to have been built in a real short window of time. There's a whole bunch that happened in a real short window. So a lot of those roads are obviously going to come due roughly around that same time frame when it's time for them to go, which we're kind of at the start of it right now. And arguably even a little bit behind it right now, which is why we're supplementing permissive motor vehicle tax, gas tax, some of these other funds, these other revenue streams to try to stay around $1 million worth of roads a year. When we went through the operations approval, we had give or take 15 streets that we're able to do with $1 million. And that is with supplementing from other revenue streams. So if we do just go off the road levy, it obviously shrinks that list down a little bit more. So just trying to project forward, Mr. Grumbles, I think you hit it on the head. This is only covering the resurfacing, and we're stretching that as far as we can right now. It does not cover the big capital projects of expanding and building new roads to accommodate all the infrastructure and all the additional traffic that we're seeing with all the building out of the township. So I think that's the big question is how do we make more lemonade out of the lemons we have.
Yep. And we had the last board, I invited the engineer to come and present, and they did a nice job. We have a new board. I had some wonderful conversation with them on ways the county can help us. The county really wants a viable partner, right? They want to know that if they run into eminent domain issues, that we're not going to fold and go away, that we're going to partner with them through the difficulties that may surface, that we're going to contribute to our own community, and that we're willing to partner when we have roads like Shanahan with the budding communities and find middle ground. They want to be able to work with us through that. And I can assure you, based on the conversation I've had, as we continue to do that, they are financially sound. And they have a transportation improvement district. They have other tools like the bonds and different resources. And the more we partner and collectively align on these projects and the timelines, the easier it is when there's 2, 3, 4 entities or officials that are sending the same letters of support, as you heard earlier from our zoning director, to the same entities and saying, hey, this is what this is really going to mean for us. And then, of course, with that comes behind the scenes politicking and momentum, because it's a win for everybody involved, and business community as well. They have a very strong voice, like it or not, and to continue to grow our regional and local commercial corridors responsibly. They're going to continue to have a voice. So I'm very confident, but I think I would like to have the engineer responding, if you can help coordinate that with Mr. Doug Riedel. I think it's good time with this discussion to have them stop back in and share the presentation and kind of update us on what the township can expect in the county, public works groups, different sources of funding that they have, and kind of the strategies they've shared with me personally. I'd love for the collective board and community to hear those from them.
And on that topic, myself, Ms. Kraft, Ms. Bonnie, you guys may not know this yet, but we got a scheduled meeting coming up with that same group to discuss the phase 2 and phase 3 of Bale Canyon to try to keep that in motion. With OPWC being tied to that project, any subsequent applications may be impacted by the delays of getting that done. So that is a vital project for us, and roughly carries about $10 million price
I'd
tag.
like to participate in that discussion. If you could include me, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
And then I'd like to just have them do a similar public presentation like they did a year ago, since we have a new board, and a topic like this, I think, critical for the community to hear at large. So.
Lisa, which other, is the Parks Levy also up?
Parks Levy is up also, but right now, from my discussion with Silas on that, right now, cash-wise, we're fine. And we don't know what the plan is with the master plan. The timing probably isn't going to be there. So the thought there is to recommend just, renewal. So.
And then is the Fire Levy
was last year.
last year?
Yep.
Okay, so it's
So it would be
nothing
Parks
else.
and Roads. Yep.
Okay, so we could add another levy
If you
if
wanted
we
to.
need, and then we could make it clear to the public, these are the projects you're funding, and if they are interested, they'll vote it down and they won't have the roads, or, I just don't know where the economy is doesn't look good.
I get it. The other thing maybe I suggested to you is maybe it's worth talking to the Delaware County Commissioners about some funding maybe. And I'm happy to, you guys have the electronic file if you want to share this with them or share it with the engineer's office. I mean, this is reality. This is the train tracks we're standing on right now with our roads.
So when I met with the engineer's office, I'm planning to go to a commissioner meeting and present kind of what we're working on, update them on some of the recent economic development engagements that we've started with the JED and the TIF, and just kind of share the collaboration and what position, why we're doing these things, right, and the position we're in. I spoke to one of the commissioners already, just briefly about it. They invited it, and I think that'd be a good one where we could have our new team members come, introduce them to the commissioners, and also yourself from a fiscal standpoint, just to have some presence and collectively, carve out some time. I'll reach back out and to the administrator there, and she was in the meeting when we discussed this as well, and get alignment. And Miss Bonnie, if you want to work with me on that, we can take our team up there, if you will, and take a half hour or so of their time just kind of talking about Orange Township, what's going on. I think you're spot on. That may help. With the engineer, they were pretty confident. Miss Bonnie, were you in the meeting with the engineer when we talked about the county? You were in one of them, I think, but maybe not the one with Berlin Township, but
I was not.
the one with Tracy and the different folks. And they were pretty confident that with the township coming to the table as well, that the county commissioners would be open to work with us.
Well, I can coordinate with their administrator to set that up.
I appreciate that.
And then I'll also, as a takeaway, after I hear back from Doug Dalton this week, I will, if there is money available in the Delaware County bond fund, then I will invite them to the next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Fair enough?
And Lisa, thank you so much for this comprehensive analysis, because I think it's the best I've seen since Diane Slavin was the fiscal officer back in 15 years ago. So thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you very
really
much. It means a
appreciate
lot.
It's so much.
Do a
So
great
good.
job.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Grateful
Thank
to have you.
You're very.
That's all the good news I have today.
Bonnie?
Yes, thank you. So I'll actually have Val present on the first item and then Mike on the second item.
Yeah, we would like to appoint our events and communications coordinator, here the final plan to the Orange Township outreach.
So as you recall, in the interim, it was, I think, it was Silas and Val as the representatives. I believe I was a representative at one point, but everybody's been a great help. And now that we officially have a communications point here, as you mentioned earlier, we would like Carolina to be the official representative for the OTOP committee.
Sounds good.
That's great.
Perfect fit there, I think, with the role and responsibilities, give you a party to that group. Make a motion to approve Resolution 22-178, appoint Carolina Flynn to Orange Township Outreach and Communications Committee Representative.
Second.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Morning, Board. So what you have before you today for the resolution is a transfer of sick leave for Robin Duffy as he transitions from Violet over to Orange, and you see the amount listed in the resolution.
I have no questions.
Make a motion to appoint Resolution 22-179, accepting sick leave credit of 211.88 hours to Development and Zoning Director Robin Duffy.
Second.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Got rid of the economic development update, so I think we're good there. And the only thing left would be enter into executive session. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 22-180, enter into executive session to conference with township attorneys concerning a dispute that is a subject of imminent litigation pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22.
Second.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes, and invited to attend, along with legal counsel and the Board of Trustees, is our administrator, HR director, and fiscal officer.
Can we, if I can ask, if we can excuse the department heads for the remainder of the meeting?
Absolutely, that's your call.
Thank you.
Always is.
Today's sticks. Thanks, no problem. Hey, Paul. We're on.
Motion to approve resolution 22-181, return to regular session.
Second?
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes?
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
I have nothing further.
Make a motion to approve resolution 22-182, meeting adjournment.
Second?
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.